he's got a bunch of stuff going on at the high school right now.
Already graduated.
No, he had completed all of his credits, and so he's here doing his automotive, you know, because he's completed his credits at high school, but right now they're checking if they're doing graduation stuff and everything. Anyway, we got a bait and switch thing going on here, and what happens is sometimes you got these, you got one that you'll be working on this, you'll think you found out what the problem is, but it'll kind of throw you for a loop. And that's what this is about. Now, some of these run-of-the-mill concerns, some of the problems are really sort of easy to figure out. You know, if this is real straightforward. Well, you know, on this truck this morning that we were looking at, Joey was saying he smelled gas and this kind of thing, but he wanted an oil change too. And I went over and looked. Fairly simple to open the lid and see that the gas cap was one of them kinds you stick in there and you click. Well, somebody had busted the top off of it and he just had it sitting down in there. Well, it probably had something to do with the gas smell. And then, of course, Jonathan found that the oil cap was busted off too, so we got that. Well, my Taurus, when it had only 50,000 miles on it, I would be driving it, and I'd be going up that long, slow hill in front of Sonic over, and I'd feel like doing a little bite. And it's supposed to last, the spark plugs are supposed to be changed at 100,000 miles. I went ahead and put a set of plugs in it, you know, and that was what happened here. After I put the plugs in it, it was about 85% better. I mean, it wasn't nearly as bad to do that, but apparently it needed a coil, so I went ahead, and the reason I found that, I plugged it in. That's one of the scan tools I've got, and figured out the code I got wasn't a misfire code, it was a P0351, which is a primary fault. And that's sort of a strange thing, probably due to the misfire that was going on. It says a coil primary fault can really mess you up because sometimes it'll be there for different reasons. But anyway, that particular one, I got a Motorcraft coil pack. And so I went ahead, you know, you can actually get thrown for a loop by that, but I went ahead and bought a coil pack anyway, but picked up a Motorcraft coil pack and put on there, and hadn't had any more missing on that vehicle. Well, here was another one. This was a little bit tougher. This was a 2001 Jeep Cherokee that would, after you drove it a long way and you parked it and you let it switch off and you have a hot soak. You know what hot soak is, right? When it's hot and it just sits there, and when you switch it off, the temperature under the hood goes hotter and hotter and hotter, and the engine is, because there's nothing circulating, that's a hot soak. Okay, and this one here would skip, but when I first started it up, and you'd actually feel, and it would actually start blinking the misfire, and it would always throw a code 3, cylinder number 3 misfire. And these straight 6 Jeeps like to have issues with that anyway. They like to crack heads and blow gaskets on the number 3 cylinder area. So I usually troubleshoot the skips on startup problems by starting the engine, and then I shut it down while it's still skipping. And at that point, I pull the spark plugs really quick and see if one of them's steaming or sooty. Excuse the telephone, it'll stop ringing in a minute. If the plug is steaming, then coolant's migrating into that cylinder, and the plug won't fire until it dries out. So that there you got a temporary misfire. I've troubleshot a bunch of them like that for head gasket issues. If it's sooty, an injector's probably dripping, and if pulling the injector if you pull the injectors and you find a clean injector tip where that same sooty spark plug was, and you'll know the injector's dripping there. And so that's something I've had there. Yes, ma'am.
Can I get my oil change here, please?
Yeah, you can do that. We need to get through with class first, so you can come back after lunch.
Not right now, it is for tomorrow.
Yeah, come tomorrow morning early.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. All right. Okay, but anyway, so that's how I troubleshoot that. Now, injector tips aren't typically clean unless they're washed regularly, and if the gas is dripping out of there, it's washing the injector and then getting, you know, the intake stream will blow that soot off of it and all that kind of stuff. But they ought to be sort of, you know, ugly and dirty like most everything else in the intake is. If they're not, then, you know, it seems like a clean one would be good and a dirty one would be bad, but it's the other way around. This little fuel leaking from the regulator, will tell you that diaphragm busted in there, and it can actually pump fuel into the engine too and flood them that kind of way. And that's another little thing that can happen. Well, as it turned out, the number 3 cylinder was getting a little dose of unwelcome coolant when the engine was shut down hot, and the leak wasn't a bad one. The owner wanted it took care of, so the head gasket was seeping coolant. You see the place over there where that head gasket was leaking? Right there?
Yellow air.
It's really amazing to me how sometimes if you're wanting to find something like that, this one here showed up pretty good, but sometimes if you shine a light across it when you're looking at it, you can see it better than if you're looking straight at it for some strange reason. You know, it's just the way it is when it comes out in relief. And you could also see how there was some crusty stuff there was green stuff on top of the piston. Well, anyway, here's these tricky ones. This right here, the bait and switch thing, makes us look like we're incompetent, and those are the ones that bother us the most. Like sometimes you'll do something and you'll do everything right, and then something will go south on you, and it makes you look like you didn't know what you were doing. In spite of the fact that you know you did everything right, you can't convince the customer of that. One time I was working on a Renault that was a little, back when we had the Renault dealership over there, and we were taught in school, when I went to Renault school, that the little ignition module, if you mash the potting right there by the connector where it goes in there, and it kills the engine, then that ignition module is what's making it stall. And so I got one, and the other guy said it was stalling sometimes, and so I drove it, and never would stall. And I got it in there, and I got it running through my procedure of diagnosis, and when I mashed that little potting right there, it killed the engine. Crank it up, mash the little potting, kill the engine again. It's not supposed to do that. So I said, well, it needs this ignition module. I put it on there, and the guy drove it for 2, 3, or 4 days, and it acted up again. And his boss man brought him over there, you know, and he was trying to act like, oh, y'all were just throwing parts at it and all that. Well, I mean, I did what I was taught at school. You know what I mean, to do that. And I'm not, you know, if I'd have changed, the crank sensor turned out to be bad, but you had to drive it a really, really long way on a really hot day to get it to open up. And so that was another deal. But he needed really both of those parts, but it looked like we were just throwing parts at it. All right, so about the same time we get a call about an '08 Nissan Maxima with a lot of codes and an inoperative dash panel and AC functions. Now you're gonna like this one. This one here was fun, okay? All right, so this right here has got a neat little shelf in the front of the information center screen right there, where people like to throw change. People take throw it up there. Doesn't seem like it's a big deal. I mean, it's a just perfect little storage area. If they made it where it had more of a slant to it, they wouldn't have this problem. All right, some of the coins find their way through this little crack right here. All right, let me back up. Through this little crack right here. And when they go through that little crack, they fall on top of this, which is actually mounted right in here behind that area. And that's the unified meter and AC amplifier. It has to do with the instrument cluster and the AC. All right, so now we're working our way into AC here. All right, so this unified meter and AC amplifier has a coin-sized slot in it. See that little slot right there? And it's right below that little neat shelf, and it's got a very important circuit board in it. And metal money ruins electronics and shorts out cigarette lighter sockets, right? So this thing, there's little pennies and stuff. There's a penny we found in there. See that penny? And it went in there, and see where it fried that circuit board and burned a hole in it? I mean, we had to put one of those in there. It was like $400 or something like that to get that straightened out. But it was because somebody threw change up there and it fell down in there. I don't know at the times that I've actually seen cigarette lighters, you know, like they'll have a cigarette lighter right there in the ashtray, and people will have the cigarette lighter pulled out of there because they're going to use it for their phone charger, and they'll throw pennies in the ashtray, and some of them will go in there, they'll go down to the cigarette lighter, they'll short it out and blow the cigarette lighter fuse, you know, stuff like that. All right, so the replacement unified meter amp comes from Nissan with a piece of cloth tape over that. The people at the Nissan place were calling it the piggy bank. That's what they called it, because every time you turned around, you had to change one, you know. I got that guy working over at the Nissan place, that's what he told me. All right, so, all right, now Terry had this Honda that you're seeing right here, that little Honda car right there, right? He was a guy that worked here at the college at the time, and he came to tell me it had lost its cabin cooling, and he's driving with the windows down, and on a rainy summer day, that's kind of hot. If you got a hot, rainy summer day and your air conditioner don't work, that's miserable, you know what I mean? Got all that humidity and everything. So he dropped the Honda off, and so what do you do first? Air conditioner don't work, I don't know, somebody tell me what you're gonna do.
Check, see what cooling.
Identify it.
Turn the
Oh, yeah,
compressor, I'd crank the vehicle up and turn the AC on, see if the compressor kicks
That's a good way, that's a good test. Crank it up, turn it on, see if the compressor's running. Of course, if the compressor's running, it's not cool, you're gonna go in one direction, but in this
Because you
particular
really
case,
need to identify the problem first, because we had one, come in there the other day and it was blowing cold air, but it wasn't blowing hard. And it was on a Ranger, and there's a screen, like when you have it on max AC, where it sucks cabin air,
yeah.
and yeah, the screen stopped up and it wouldn't let it suck air through there.
Yep, sometimes a Walmart bag will get pulled up there too, stuff like that, you know. So. But anyway, the AC turned on, the compressor wasn't spinning, which is usually the case in situations like that. You know, the compressor's not spinning. All right, that's first things first. Okay, here you go, SCRP. Can you remember that? Sniff, connect, read pressures. You got it? That's how you're gonna do that. So we identified the charge with our sniffer and connected the big Mac machine, noted about 100 PSI on both gauges. So what does that mean? We got 134, we've identified it, it's got 134. We got 100 pounds of static pressure in there.
One of them's too high.
No, 100 pounds is okay, if, with static pressures when it's not running, you know, that's okay, isn't it? I mean, we got good pressures in there, so we got something else wrong. I mean, we're not low on pressure, you know, so basically, now on some of your American cars, what you're gonna have is you're gonna have like your low pressure cutout switch can be bad and cause that. You know, the one, that switch that's on the accumulator, it can cause that, but in this particular case, it's something else. The compressor's failure to engage was not related to charge pressure, it was time to poke around amongst the wires and stuff. All right, so here we wound up, what we're gonna do is we're gonna go find the compressor relay. We're gonna go to the compressor relay and we're gonna locate that relay. And but the crazy thing about this one here, it doesn't have any words identifying any relay, only creatively drawn pictures in boxes corresponding to relay pictures. See all that fancy stuff there? This is like ISO symbols. It's like you're too dumb to read or you don't know how to read the language that we like, so we're gonna put pictures on here so we can put the same one on everybody's car. All right, see some of them, it's got a little book here. You know, say, if you want to know what this one does, look at the book, right? Now, in this particular case, we got a snowflake. That's your air conditioner compressor. Now, this one out here is a snowflake, but it's also got to do with the condenser fan. See, it's got a fan here. You got a fan, you got another fan here. And so that one's for the condenser fan, this one right here is for the compressor. And so basically, we're going to found that. That's the one we're going to focus on. That's this one right here. All right, so this is how it's wired up. It's hot at all times. There's your AC compressor clutch relay, and there's your compressor clutch. Okay, now what's the easiest thing we can do right now to find out if we've got a problem somewhere down here electrically? Somebody give me an idea.
If something's wrong with like a compressor itself, maybe?
Yeah, I mean, I want to know if I've got some kind of a problem down here. Now the ground for that compressor clutch is actually loops out there and hooks directly to the compressor, you know, because the compressor is mounted to the engine, so that's going to be grounded. But you got a wire going from here directly there. That's the only place it goes. All right, so what are we going to do?
Run power to it, where you test slide or whatever.
Yeah, that's probably worked pretty good. All right, so what we did was we pull the compressor clutch relay and we hook our test light up right here between hot and here. And we should see this light up. I'm talking about right there in the compressor clutch. All right. So we wound up with a bad compressor clutch coil. The coil was burned out on the compressor clutch. All right, so told me we're going to have that. Doesn't cost a lot. The coil winding has been good. We've been looking at the wire harness for ground concern, but basically we had a bad coil winding. Yes, we ordered a compressor, and he would drive the vehicle until it came in. All right. I get a call and a report that his starter wouldn't operate, but everything else was normal.
Everything else is normal if the starter won't work.
Well, everything else is working, but he couldn't start it. You know what I'm saying, as far as he could tell, right? So he was 15 miles away. I didn't have any idea when he was having that problem, so he decided to have a shop right down the street check it out. So he calls back and said the shop claimed we hadn't plugged in the starter relay. Was that possible? So I don't know if this older version of PowerPoint is going to pull that up. Well, I had a picture right here that would work on Word 2016, but it won't work on that one, so I might have to upgrade the Word on that. But anyway, the starter relay was in the inside fuse panel under there. We didn't have nothing, we didn't do nothing in there. Well, see, all right, so I'm sitting here saying, well, it's in another fuse panel inside the passenger compartment. So here's your little soft skill sideline. Whenever possible, take the high road and give the customer the benefit of the doubt and don't act like a jerk. That's okay, we'll have a look at it, you know, when it comes back over here. All right, so the compressor arrives. See, they said that we didn't put the starter relay back in there, but we ain't even had our finger on the starter relay. We had nothing to do with the starter relay, right? All right, so we identified the refrigerant, pumped it out, heated the engine compartment with the engine running, so we make sure we had all the refrigerant out, and a lot of times it's a good idea to do that. The old compressor was removed, and with it on the bench, we set it on the bench, and we hooked power and ground up to the compressor clutch to see if it would click, and it wouldn't click. It was just dead as a tune. Or measure with the meter, nothing there. Right? So, aha, you know, we're good on that. Just for friends, we applied current, the clutch of all, so far so good, right? So, All right, so we unbox the new compressor, set it next to the old one for physical comparison, look at it, make sure it looks right, and it did. So we tested the compressor clutch coil on the new one, put power and ground to it, click, it clicked in, see? All right, got them side by side. This one won't energize, this one will. Ta-da! That's how we know. So we double checking everything, make sure it's all okay. Found it really good and solid. We had, I think, 3 or 4 homes, whatever it was. And we did a belt and suspenders verification when we did that to make sure that the compressor clutch coil was on, everything was good. So the information in the box indicated it came with oil in it. Always look in the box and read the papers. Because some compressors come with oil, some come without oil. If you put it in without oil, you're going to have some issues. In other words, if it doesn't come with oil and you put it in and you don't add the right amount of oil, you know, double check that. If you add oil that it doesn't need because it comes with oil, that's a problem too. Too much oil make them not cool, right? So be careful with that. So we pulled it down for 15 minutes, checked for vacuum loss, checked the specs, juiced it up with just over a pound of the cold stuff from the light blue tank. All right. Now we verified the repair, but when we turned on the AC, we found the compressor still wasn't engaged. This is the one that makes you look like you're a buffoon. If the guy had been standing there, he'd have thought, that's it, I didn't need a compressor. I mean, of course, we were, you know, backing up. So after we got done wondering what the heck was going on, we started to re-diagnosing the new problem. Now, here's what we did here. We discovered the clutch would engage if we bypassed the AC clutch relay. Furthermore, the relay had everything it needed to operate. So you ought to have 2 powers and 2 grounds in this socket. One of the grounds will be coming through your load. One of them is actually going to be the side of the coil that's energized in the relay. All right, the 2 powers would be the one that's going to the side of the coil that will power it up, and the other one's going to be the one that's hot all the time, or you know, it's supposed to be feeding power out. So when you put power and ground to these two go together. So you ought to have power and a ground here, and you ought to have power and a ground there. That's basically the way you check that. So that was, when the AC turned on, we had everything we needed right there. The conclusion was we had a bad relay. Well, think about this. Look at the analysis here. We never had checked the relay's integrity to begin with. We simply checked for continuity of ground on the cavity leading to the compressor clutch, and we determined it was open. We didn't see anything wrong with the wires either. So when we got the new compressor, we verified after removing the original unit, the compressor clutch coil was open, and tested the new compressor clutch coil the same way. So that means we even before we put the compressor on there, we made sure. We verified our original diagnosis was sound, and it was. There was nothing wrong with our original diagnosis. It made us look like idiots, though, and to somebody that didn't know anything. You know, a lot of times you can try as best you can to explain an electrical problem to somebody. I'll tell you what this one guy did. Brought a car like the white one that we're putting the starter on. And the guy says, my air conditioner don't work. And he says, and every time I put a fuse in here, it blows the compressor. Wake up, Jonathan. It blows the fuse, right? And so can you tell me why it blows the fuse? And then he says, well, you know, he quick checked it right quick, and he says it has shorted compressor clutch coil. You know, it's basically mostly shorted, and it blows the fuse. Okay, so he says, bring it back Monday, and we'll put you a compressor on there. You know, and I said, okay. So Monday came and went, and the guy didn't show up. Tuesday he didn't show up. Wednesday he didn't show up. He showed up about 2 weeks later. He said, now I've got other problems. And Donnie says, what other problems are you talking about? Well, it turned out, to make a long story short, the guy had took a piece of 12 gauge Romex wire, like you wire up a house with, and bent it into a horseshoe and rammed it down in the fuse holder, thinking he's going to make it where the compressor is going to stay on. I'll force this sucker to stay on. Well, the only problem with that was he burned up the dadgum wire harness. And this is an 06 model GM car. So Donnie called GM and said, how much would a wire harness be, you know, for the engine compartment on this thing? And the guy said, well, if we could get one, it would be $485 or whatever it was. I don't remember what the number was. He says, but you can't get it anymore. And any wire harness you buy from a junkyard, they've cut all the dadgum connectors off of it anyway. And they still want to charge you a big bunch of money for it, but they've cut all the wire. You know what I'm saying? They don't unplug all the connectors. They just snip, snip, snip. The junkyards around here do anyway. And so Donnie says, well, it's like this. He said, I can take that wire harness off of there, and I can split that wire harness, and I can fix everything that's wrong with it, but you are going to pay me however much clock time it takes. with my labor rate, shop labor rate, $60, $70, $80 an hour, whatever you're charging. The guy said, well, I don't wanna do that, that could cost $800 or $1,000. He said, yeah, it could. But if I do it, that's what you're gonna pay me. I said, well, I'll just drive it without air conditioning with all. See, the guy destroyed the dadgum car by jumping it with a piece of Romex wire, thinking he was gonna fix something. You see what I mean? Now, that's a true story, right? All right, so why would the clutch coil relay be faulty at the same time the AC compressor clutch was open? You know what I mean? I mean, we got a bad relay and we got a bad compressor clutch coil. All right, these odd little potted relays, you see them relays right there that's got that shiny junk around there? It's a potted relay. I got one of them laying right up there, it's the Nissan. And it did crazy things. That's one right there that's not potted. This is one that you can actually pop that cover off of and you can see the inside of the relay. But the little potted relays are strange little critters. And you remember the Alta we were talking about, that when she turned on the AC, it would be 5 minutes before the blower would kick on and start to work. And so we got under there and we pulled that relay out and we pulled the one for the rear window defrost, which was the same relay. You gotta make sure they're the same one. Plugged it in there and she instantly had a blower every time. Well, we had to get another relay. And so I've got, like I say, that little blue Nissan relay cost $35, one in potted relays.
That car you was talking about, they said that they didn't put in the fuel pump relay and then they brought in here, you put a compressor on it and all. I wonder if they took the relay for the air conditioner out and put it where the fuel pump relay was and just said.
You mean the starter relay?
Yeah, starter.
That's what I was wondering about. As a matter of fact, I said this, would it be too far out to wonder if the shop that checked the starter relay might have swapped the starter relay with the AC relay? That's what I was thinking. You think they maybe just jerked the relay at random and happened to get the AC relay and put it where the starter was, and put the bad starter relay and put it where the AC was? Maybe. I don't know that. I can't say that they did or didn't, but I do know that before, see, I mean, backing up, we didn't actually check the integrity of the relay once we found out that the coil, you know, burned out on the compressor. So, you know, some mysteries aren't worth solving. Well, these little potted relays, you can get one from a parts store for $4, and they're made in the USA. Isn't that something? I mean, it's on a Honda, but it's made in this country. And that's the end of the show. Okay, tell me something that you learned. How to give a pop test for the benefit of those people who weren't here today, tomorrow. Yeah. That wouldn't be good? We can do that, right? All right, what did you learn from that? What you gonna do? What's the first thing you're gonna do when the AC don't work?
Verify.
Well, turn it on, see if the compressor clutch is running. You remember that funny little story I told that time where we were checking one? It was the first semester I taught in here. And Jerry Littlefield was a guy that, I really like him. He works in a shop over in Geneva now, and after he graduated. But anyway, he said there was a Buick Riviera, like an 85 model that came in here. And I said, Jerry, turn on the air conditioner on this thing so I can see if the compressor clutch is going. We will check it out. And so Jerry gets in there and he's rubbing his chin, looking around. And I'm thinking, how come it takes 5 minutes to do a 30-second job, you know? So he gets out and he says, I don't know how to turn that air conditioner on. I'm sorry, I just don't. And so I said, oh, come on. So I got in there and I sat down in the car. I rubbed my chin a while. Just like, and then I said, this thing has no controls on the dash except a TV screen looking thing right in the middle of the dash. And I just wonder, and you change that TV screen to whatever you wanted to do. Radio, air conditioner, whatever. So and it had little function keys on it, a little touch screen, touch. And it was an old rounded CRT screen. I touched it to AC, okay, turn on, fan. You know, you had to figure it out, but he had not a clue when he looked at it because this was just totally foreign to him. And that car was an 85 model. You know what I mean? It was a Buick Riviera, you know? I mean, it wasn't one of these fancy new cars. This was an old car even back then.
And it had touch screen?
Yeah, it had a CRT touchscreen right in the middle of the dash, about that big. But anyway, what tickled me was I got in here, oh, come on, anybody can turn on the air conditioner, and I sat there just like he did for a little Look at that.
That was you.
That is stock.
Huh? Yeah.
That was stock.
Yep. Yep, stop.
Crazy.